yeah. Hi, my name is Chris Cleary, and I work for the law offices of David Carrier and plan all the visiting experts that we have. And I'd like to welcome everyone who's online today. Really excited about tonight's presentation. So we have folks in the room and obviously folks online. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to ask them. And for the folks online, you can put them in the Q&A feature, and we'll be sure to get all those answered by the end. So again, thank you for coming, and Andrea's going to do a nice introduction.
Hi, tonight we have Dr. Michael Kwast. He is a graduate of Michigan State University and cum laude, a graduate of Palmer College of Chiropractic West in 1998. He was awarded the prestigious Clinical Excellence Award and is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Since founding iChiro clinics, the clinic has been awarded the 2014 Better Business Bureau Award of West Michigan's Trust Award for Ethics, Grand Rapids Magazine's Best of Grand Rapids Chiropractor for 8 years, Talk of the Town Award for the last 12 years. iChiro Clinics was established as a Pro Adjuster Center of Excellence in 2019. As a practitioner and international speaker and author, Dr. Kwast has helped thousands of patients realize a higher level of health and function. Let's welcome Dr. Kwast.
Yay! Thanks everybody. Thanks everybody at home. Appreciate your attention. Today we're just going to be talking about how to stay active, how to stay mobile. You know, as we all age, everybody knows that you all get stiffer, right? It's a natural thing. You will not win that battle either. Everyone will get stiffer till you get rigor mortis when you're dead, right? So nobody's living forever, but it's about how do you get to that end, having the best quality of life as possible. That's what we're talking about. And so I always tell my patients, I want to be like 95 years old on the golf course, hitting drives down the middle, 220 yards, talking to my grandkids about how I just hit it farther than them, and we're walking along and I just drop over dead in the sand trap, and that's the end, right? Not a nursing home, not a wheelchair, not being stuck, unable to do the things that we all want to do. Would you guys agree? That would be a good way to go. So when I talk to people, everyone says that's what they want too. The question is, everyone thinks that it's just luck and chance that you get there. And there's a lot more to it. There are many things that you can do that stack the deck in your favor. What we find is people just don't know what those things are. And so I want to give you a little brief introduction of that, just a little taste of that, if you will, because there's just not the time. The technology out there is going so fast. If you've got a cell phone, you guys remember when it was all dial? And then it was beep, beep, beep. And then it was cell phones, right? That were the size of cars. And then it just kept going along. So nowadays you have these smartphones that these are still every few months. So open a new one, because technology is moving fast. It's moving fast in all fields. So even in the chiropractic realm, there's technology and people don't even know about it. So we're trying to teach that so people can know. In front of you, you guys have a book that I wrote. It's my second book. If you're watching on Zoom, all you have to do is put in the chat your email, and yeah, we'll mail you one of these if you're on Zoom and you would like one. Or you can just come into the office and they'll give you one. Just tell them you were here. But this book spurred, where it came from was my friend is a financial planner. So he sits down with clients, much like you guys do. You know, you sit down with a client and you talk to them. And one day we were sitting around talking and at a campfire just for fun, right? And he was kind of down. And I'm like, what are you down about? And he goes, oh, I had a meeting with one of my clients today. And I go, oh, geez, it didn't go well? And he goes, well, it was a retirement party. And I'm like, well, shouldn't that be good? Shouldn't that be a good thing, right? And he goes, well, you know, it is and it isn't. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, financially, we've got him and his wife to a very good place. They're multimillionaires. They have no need for money. We did well. He goes, the sad part is 30 years ago, we sat down with him and we said, what are you going to do when you retire? Let's put a dream board together of all the things you're going to do so that when you're finally free of working, you can do all these things. And he said he was going to golf every day and they were going to travel the world and she was going to go play with her grandkids and they were going to play doubles tennis and all these things that they were going to do. And he goes, the sad part is, while we've got the money, we don't have the ability. He goes, they didn't know what to do to take care of themselves. And now they've ended up where she can't even sit on an airplane for 10 minutes. It's too painful for her. He can't even play 3 holes of golf, let alone 9 or 18. And there's no way they're playing tennis. And he said they spend their days sitting in a rocking chair, being able to pay any bill they want. And I said, that's a sad story. And he goes, it's very sad. He goes, people need to know what you're talking about because that's what they're all inadvertently choosing by not knowing what to do. And it's kind of a sad story. I mean, it could have been sadder if they were broke too, right? But the bottom line is we all want to do that fun stuff right up till the end. The problem is who's teaching that, right? And a lot of the things that we're doing healthcare wise, they really don't address any of that. In fact, if you ever are stiff, sore, or tight, all you get is a pill. And you can take a pill and not feel, but that doesn't mean it's fixing anything. And it certainly doesn't get your mobility to where it needs to be. It just masks it. Just like somebody could smoke marijuana every day and not hurt. But is that really fixing a mobility problem? Not so much, right? Now, if somebody's dying and they're in their last stages of life and they're going to be dead soon, give them all the drugs they need so they don't suffer, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about people who are up and around and doing stuff. And so masking how you feel is just not always the best answer. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and see where we're at here. So really it's not just about like avoiding being sick, right? It's about being at your best. Wouldn't you want to be at your best? And I think everybody says they would. When we think about it, you know, it's not just being symptom free, but it's really being free in what we call the freedom lifestyle, meaning free to do what you want, when you want, how you want. If you want to go and fly down to Florida with your grandkids and walk all around Disney, shouldn't you be able to? You might not want to do that, but if you did want to do that, that would be something that you would be like, yes, I want to do that. Or if you want to go with your grandkid and you want to play golf and talk and spend time in the golf cart and be able to actually play and do stuff, shouldn't you be able to do that? And I think people deserve that. And I think that there's things that they can do. We just got to get the education out to them so that they actually know what that is. Nobody's living forever, like I mentioned. And we all know that. I mean, even the apostles all are dead. So I'm pretty sure if they didn't make it, and none of us are either, because nobody's living forever. That's not how it works. But again, it's that quality of life of trying to get there with the best mobility as possible. Now, if you think about it, go ahead and go to the next one there. What if there was a way to know if you were going to have a problem with, say, your heart, even though you didn't have symptoms? What if there was a way to know about that? You would probably want to know. And there is. It's called an EKG. You can take an EKG test or you can do a cholesterol check, and they can tell you what your odds of having problems are. In fact, what if there was a way to know if you were going to have a prostate problem, or you were going to have like some kind of uterus problem or something like that? Oh, there are tests for that. You have probably already endured those tests with mammograms and pap smears and colonoscopies and prostate exams and blood pressure checks. All these tests are done on people who are largely feeling what? Okay, no symptoms. They get these tests done to see how their body's working. And then based on that, stuff's figured out of what you need to do. Now, what if there was a way to know if you had high risk of your knee wearing out, your hip wearing out, your shoulder, your back, your spine, your neck? What if there was a way to know how those things were functioning prior to having a actual symptomatic disaster or problem? The answer is that'd be cool. The answer is there are ways to know, simple ways. And I'm going to show you a few of them because they're really quite simple. It's just nobody really knows about them. And that's the sad part, because people then have problems. And this is very common sense once you see how it kind of plays out. So think about this, you know, as time goes by, what do you think's happening with our bodies? It is there. I mean, we're in the downhill slide, right? Once you get to be about 40, it's a downhill slide. So it's always moving that way. So trying to think of anything you can do to even up your mobility and ability to move around and do stuff, even 10% would be highly valuable, wouldn't it? If I went, and I used to before COVID, we were doing seminars like this all over the city and about once a week. I was busy doing that. And we were going into companies and into churches and into law firms, just anybody that wanted to learn about this stuff, we were talking to them. And at the nursing homes, and a lot of them were independent living. So the first few that I went to, we were there to speak to the staff, because the people that were running the home, their staff gets hurt lifting people, you know, into the bed, into the shower, somebody's going to fall, they try to catch them, things like that. So they had me come and they're like, we want you to talk so we can try to figure out how to like prevent people from getting hurt. So I'm like, okay, so I go and I'm talking and we have their whole staff. Well, then all of a sudden, all these people start piling in who live there because they don't have nothing to do. And they want to hear somebody talk about something, because the TV, there's only so much of that you can take, right? So they come piling in. And I've asked them a question, and this happened numerous times. And I said, how many of you here who are living here, raise your hand, and they would raise their hand. And then I'd say, how many of you, if you could live at home, would rather live at home? And what do you think their answer was? What percent raised their hand? 100%. They all raise their hands. I would much rather live at home. No offense to the place, right? Because some of the places are nice, but they would rather live at home. And I said, what if you had to live at home, but you had to be in like a 3 out of 10 of pain every day, but you were at home? Would you take it? What do you think they all said? 100% of them raised their hand, said, I'd rather be in a little bit of pain every day and still be able to be at home and do what I want to do. That freedom lifestyle, right? They would rather do that. And this is very enlightening, because that's not what we were taught in school. And that's not the current thought process when you go to these healthcare groups and meetings and talk to doctors and nurses. Everybody thinks just nobody wants any pain. But really what people want is their freedom to be able to do things, even if it came with pain. And I'm not saying it has to. I'm just trying to show you a point that it's not just walking around in a complete drug-induced stupor where you don't even know what planet you're on with no pain. It's about how do you get to be as active as you can. Now I'm going to show you a couple tests. Go ahead and go to the next one. These are a few of those tests that we were talking about, and some of these are just observational that you can do or anyone can do. One of the things that's interesting, if you just look at someone's shoes, you can see sometimes it looks like one of them has been on the belt sander for 5 minutes and the other one hasn't. And it's not because the shoes were worn when they bought them. It's because their body is putting pressure on that side and it's wearing that out and they don't even know. If that was your vehicle, you would do something about it. But the body, nah, just take drugs, right? That's what everyone does, which is kind of crazy. If you took your car, and just think about this, and I know I'm asking you to do a big thing. It's begin thinking like you're a beginner, that you're new to what's going on, that you don't already know stuff. And just think about, you know, let me just learn for a second and just pretend that you don't feel like you know all this stuff just for a second and just see this for what it is. So if I had my car and it was making a weird noise and I'm driving around, it's like squeak, 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 and I'm driving around, man, that's bad. And then my wife's yelling at me, you need to take that in. Something's wrong. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Ah, it still drives. Squeak, 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 right? And then finally I pull into the mechanic and I'm like, hey, mechanic, listen to this. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And he's, oh, that's terrible. I can fix that for you. And I say, great, let's get it fixed. And he reaches in and he turns up the radio so loud, I can't hear the squeaking anymore. And then he says, it's fixed. And I drive away. You would not stand for that for 1 second if your mechanic did that. Yet, that's exactly what's happening when you take drugs to mask how you feel. It just masks it. It's covering it. It's not fixing the underlying cause. And why do I bring this up? Because so many people, I mean, what do you think the #1 cause of acute liver failure is in the United States? It's not booze. It's called Tylenol. Yet, no one knows that. And people take it like candy. And that's why it's the #1 cause, because it's like doing damage. Now, does that mean you should never take a pill? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying let's be smart about this and really think things through about what's happening. But Tylenol is very dangerous. You can Google that. Fact check me. Google it. It'll come right up. #1 cause of acute liver failure is acetaminophen, aka Tylenol. So you want to try, and it's not because you took a whole bottle because you were trying to kill yourself. It's called just little bits over time, damage, 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 damage. So wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to take something like that? I think everybody agrees, yes. Even my doctor friend who works down at the hospital, he says he tells nobody to take Tylenol ever because he works in the toxicology. He's like, everybody coming in, all the poisonings of that. I go, yeah, who do you see every day? You see all these people coming in because they're drinking Drano and weird poisons. And he's like, no, it's all medications. That's what they're coming in with, is they're overdosing on meds, which is really interesting. So we got to figure out and think through some of these things so we can see what the causes are and try to get at it. Go ahead and go to the next one there, Chris. Another thing you can observe all the time. I mean, you probably drive my family crazy because like this is all I see when we go places are things like this. Look at this lady's shoulder. And I see all the people. There's a guy at the airport in Pittsburgh. I was just in Pittsburgh training about 50 chiropractors on some of the things I'm training you on. Isn't that interesting, right? But there's a janitor there in the airport and he is like this. Now you think one day he was like this and then all of a sudden he just went poof. Now he's like that, or did that happen slow over time? The problem is nobody was looking at it. Nobody was paying attention to it. And if it didn't hurt, he didn't care. And if it did hurt, what do you think he did? Took Tylenol or something else, right? That's just the way of America right now. And that's the common road. It's not the best road though. Go ahead and go to the next one. So some of these other tests, muscle knots, you'll always have lots of muscle knots around areas of dysfunction. So we talk about this a lot because we'll see patients and they'll have like a shoulder or a knee or their back or something's not working well. And there's all these muscle knots around there. And then they'll say, well, I get massage, but then it just all comes back. So why would that be? Well, if you think about it, if the joint doesn't move right, the other muscles are going to compensate to try to help it. And then they're going to get tired because they're not used to doing that. And then they're going to throw into a muscle knot. You can work it out. Oh, but then it's going to come right back because the cause is the joint mobility is bad. So how do you know if your joint mobility is bad? Just like anything, testing. Testing tells you if your joint mobility is bad. So for example, one test right here, they're showing that you bend down and touch your toes. So you guys tell me, if I go to bend down and touch my toes, oh, that's about as far as I get. That's one scenario. Other scenario, I can come all the way down. Which one do you think is more likely to get hurt? The guy who can only go about to here, or the same guy, but he can go all the way down? Who do you think is more likely to get hurt? Okay, sorry guys. getting used to the camera thing. So coming down, if you can only get to about there, that's stiff and tightness, right? Which everybody, when they come into the office, especially the guys, they all minimize it. Oh, I'm just a little stiff. That is the kiss of death. And I'll show you why in a minute. But think about this. If I can only bend to here, or if I can bend all the way down, who do you think is more likely going to get hurt? The one that can bend, their looser one is less likely to get hurt because they're flexible. The tightness in the people is how you get hurt. So when you're stiff and tight, that's when you get hurt. That's why when grandma falls down the stairs, she's in the hospital with broken bones. Grandkids are sliding down the stairs on a piece of cardboard for kicks and giggles, and they don't get hurt because they're flexible. So the stiffer you are, the more likely you are going to get hurt. If you find somebody, so for example, one of the things we do is I have this little ruler, everybody's wondering, I carry this because in the office we use this all the time. So we would measure, one of the tests we would do is we do that. We have you bend down and touch your toes, and then we would measure how far you can do that. And then we would take that measurement and we write that down in the chart. And now we know where you're at with your baseline. And then in the future, we can come back and remeasure and see if what we're doing is improving on that or not. So really the product is your increase in your mobility, not whatever the treatment is. This is a thing, I call it product confusion, but people get confused. Like if you think that the product of like coming in is to get like an adjustment or a treatment, really that's not the thing. You're coming in for the result of the treatment, which is to increase your range of motion, increase your mobility, decrease your chances of having injuries, and then also decreasing your chance of having arthritis, which I'll show you that here in a second. All right, another one here. This is big. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but Harvard, they came out with a huge article in their book. It was actually on the cover, telling all the physicians in the world that they need to start focusing on balance, because when people fall, people get hurt, and they get hurt bad, and it's a disaster. And there's not a lot that you can do that anybody's known. There's not a pill you can take for better balance. Have you guys heard about like falls being a big deal? It is a really big deal because about half the people that fall, they all go to the hospital. Half of those will go to the nursing home and never go home again. Yikes. So we have technology now, it's pretty cool, where you can actually, we screen everybody like this, where you stand on one leg, you then close your eyes and you try to balance and see if you can balance. We now have technology where you can stand on this plate and the computer is going to measure your exact, what they call a stability index. So as you're standing on that and we do these different tests, it'll measure how well you can balance. And then it will put on the screen a balance game, which is therapy for you. And you actually move the game with your feet. So you're moving around with your feet, watching a little guy on a screen. One of the ones everybody likes is this little penguin, and the penguin goes down the ski hill and you're the one moving the penguin with your feet. And what that does is retraining your pathways of your nervous system for balance so that you increase your balance and get better balance. It's really a breakthrough that's just come out. So that's a new technology thing that's available now that we have to help people get better balance. When you think about your balance too, everybody is kind of confused. They just think it's your ears, right? And that is one piece of balance, but you also have your vision and you also have all of your nerves. So all of your nerves are receptors in your joints, tendons, muscles, ligaments. Those receptors tell your brain what's going on with your body. It's kind of like this. Is my thumb up or down? How do I know? I can't see it. Oh, it's up. There's receptors in there telling me where I am in space. And this is a vast, vast network of sensors in your body telling your brain what is going on for all these little movements and things that we all do. When those muscles, ligaments, tendons, any of that, joint capsules, when those get hurt in an injury, your brain actually like reroutes around that. It's called a compensation pattern. You've probably heard that, where people will compensate. Your brain will reroute. Like if I break my leg and I wear a cast for 6 months, then they take the cast off, I'm still walking around limping even though I don't have a cast no more. Your brain has rerouted a new pattern. What happens is with some of the technologies that we have, you can actually stimulate with instruments these receptors, and then they will send messages to your brain. Your brain will then hear those receptors again. Whoa, wow, I hear you now. And it actually fine tunes your movement patterns, which is huge for anybody. Elite athletes, kids, adults, old people, everybody needs better mobility, just for different reasons. So these balance tests are critical for people because if you can even just prevent one fall, you can change somebody's quality of life dramatically. Here's a shoulder test where you should be able to reach around. You guys can try it. Go ahead and try it. You should be able to reach around and you should be able to touch your hands behind your back. If you cannot, what we do is we measure with the ruler how far away your hands are. And then what we do is you watch that. And you want to try to get it as good as it can. Some people will never be able to touch. They're just too messed up, right? But you get it as good as it can, and then you walk with them and you keep that mobility with them so that as they're getting older, we're watching it, and if something's starting to tighten up, then we know. Because right now, who's watching your mobility? Nobody. There's nobody. When you go to the doctor, nobody's checking any ranges of motion. I mean, we do at our office because we understand this. It's a different thing than just symptom care. And it's a different thing than disease care. This is called quality of life care, keeping your mobility good. So when you lose that motion, imagine this. Imagine you're just a little kid and we take you and we measure all these ranges of motion. How far can you turn your head? How far can you tip it? How far can you bend? This way, this way, this way, this way. How does your shoulders work? Can you touch your heel to your butt? That's a knee test. Can you swing your leg out all the way like this, flat? This is a hip test. We do all these tests when the person's young and little. And then we walk with them through life and we watch them. And periodically we'll redo all those tests. And when something tightens up, even though they're not crying about it, they're not in the hospital, they're not even taking Tylenol, we're on it. And we get on those mobilities and then we get them better and we watch them and they're going through life and they're slipping and falling and playing football and getting in car wrecks and they're doing things along the way called life that we all do, right? But we're watching and paying attention to those mobilities. And as we do that, all of a sudden they're 85 years old, but we've been watching it the whole way. Now rewind, we take that same kid, say, you don't need none of that, just take Tylenol. And he does that until he's 85. And it's the two of the same people, but one did it the way I'm suggesting. The other one did it is the way everyone's doing it now. Which one of them do you think be moving better? Kind of obvious, right? And then it's like, well, how come nobody's doing that? And I go, because they just don't know. Because who would ever pick that? Let's see. Would you like to have good freedom, lifestyle, mobility, being active best as you can when you're retired? Or you want to be in a rocking chair the whole time? Oh, rocking chair for 500, Alex. I mean, nobody says that. It's just people don't know, right? So that's why I'm here talking about it, because it's a big deal. And why is Chris have me here? Because you guys, you're saving for your retirement. You're working with them to like protect everything that you're doing so that you have the financial resources to do what you want when you're old. And shouldn't you be able to do the fun stuff that you can actually want to do too? Not just sit in a bathtub full of money going, oh, ho, ho, and I can't get out of the bathtub. That's a problem. So these tests that I'm talking about, I just gave you a little taste of them. You can go ahead and go to the next one there. Just a few of these tell you a lot. This one, you put your arms up, they should be able to hold this up here, you know, for a good 30 seconds and have no problem. Some people can't do it. They'll drop their arms. This is really a problem because what are you going to do the next time the police pull you over if you can't do it? Put your hands, oh, I can't. Oh, that's bad. No, just kidding. But it's a test that shows you your shoulder mobility, how well your shoulders work, plus your neck, all the nerves that go down through there. So there are all these physical mobility tests that you just might not be aware of. Go ahead and go to the next one there. So these tests, they just help us to see. Now, why does it matter? Well, for mobility, number one. But number two, let me just give you an example. I had a lady come in and she had hurt her neck and she could barely move her neck and it was really painful. And she came in and I'm thinking she got hit by a car. She fell off the roof. I mean, something awful must have happened because she was in really bad shape. And so I asked her, I go, well, what did you do? And she goes, well, I was down at the Butterfly Museum and this butterfly flew by and I turned my head and I'm hurt. And she's blaming the butterfly. And I'm like, butterflies don't hurt people. Like that, it wasn't that. What it was that her neck did not move properly. She could only, when we measured it, she had about 20, 25 degrees range of motion. You're supposed to have 90 in rotation. She didn't know that because nobody ever checked it. It didn't hurt, so she didn't care, so she didn't know. But she had been losing her range of motion all along. And then when the butterfly required her to look farther than what she can, she strains and pulls all the muscles. And now she's flared up. So she comes in. Now we can work on her and we can make her feel better, which is what she wanted. However, what if we don't fix the mobility problem? We just make her feel better. Oh my God, thank you so much, Dr. Mike. I feel so much better. And we did all these things and now I'm feeling great. But she still can't turn her head. What do you think's going to happen the next time she's at the Butterfly Museum? Would you be shocked and surprised by that? Or would you expect that it would just happen again? See, that's the problem, is people are not understanding why they're getting hurt. So she's like, I'm good, I'm fine, I feel fine now. And she's walking out a disaster about to happen and she doesn't even realize it because she hasn't been taught this. And nobody looked at her range of motion. We do. So I'm telling her, we got to get your range of motion back to as much as close to normal as you can. Then we know your risk is low of having an injury. And it's not just the neck, a hip. The hip is one of the most common things. We even saw just a little boy come in the other day and his hip range of motion is so bad. So bad. When he lays on the ground, on the floor, and he does that hip test where you bring your leg up like this, his leg is up in the air like this. He can't bring it down. You see that a lot because a lot of people get hip replacements. So how does that work? So I'm going to shift gears here for a second, but one of the things that happens when you're stiff and tight is you get injured more. The other thing that happens is you actually will degenerate your joints. So most people think arthritis is from age. When I talk to patients, I've been doing this 25 years. When you talk to people, I'm just getting old, it's just worn out. And routinely we have people come in with this concept, and I have the story about this guy, and it's about 40 of them because it's the same story. But he comes in, he's like, my hip is all worn out, it's shot, been to the doctor, they checked it all out. He wants to do a hip replacement, but I don't want to do that. What do you think? And I'm like, well, let's look. So we look all his reports that he brought in, we read through all that. We look at it, we look at his range of motion. I go, well, your hip is shot. I concur, it's shot. And I go, but why did they tell you it's shot? And he goes, well, they just said, because I'm old. And I said, well, hold on, let me look. And I looked in the chart. I go, oh, no, I agree, you're old. So we concur. I said, but let me just ask you this. How's your other hip doing? And he goes, well, that one's fine. Nothing wrong with that one. And I go, well, how old's that one? If age was the cause, then they'd both be worn out. How? The same, right? When they're not the same, then it's not the age. In fact, if age was the cause of arthritis, then every joint in your entire body, from your little toe to your knee, to your hip, to your pelvis and spine, and your neck and your shoulders and your hands, how would those joints all be worn out if it was from age? Exactly the same. But you never see that. When you look in healthcare, you never see that. There's always certain areas that are worn out more. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to use this piece of paper here. This is for the seminar. When you look at the joint, and this is just giving you some basic anatomy, you have a bone and another bone, and where they come together is called a joint. And then around that joint, you have ligaments and tendons and muscles. What's inside the joint? Yeah, cartilage. So this paper, that's going to be your cartilage, just for visual here. So I got a bone, I got cartilage, I got another bone on top, and then I got muscles crossing over that. And there's, like you said, synovial fluid in there, other stuff. Now, if the muscle that goes from one bone to the other and crosses over the joint, which is what all the muscles do, that's how you move. This quad has to attach on my other side of the joint, or else I can't bend my knee. So that muscle crosses over the joint. When a muscle crosses over a joint and gets tight, just a little stiff, I'm just a little tight, what is that tightness doing to the space inside this joint? It's compressing down. So now you have that muscle squeezing that joint together. The problem is there's cartilage in there. So as it's doing this, this cartilage is doing this, and it's shredding and degenerating. And you don't even know because it doesn't hurt yet. This is the catch. You can open a joint up and take a knife and go, and the patient's like, feel nothing. There's not a ton of pain receptors in the cartilage. So it wears out asymptomatically. Well, then it'll get so bad that most of the cartilage is gone. The wear, you'll start to get all these bone spurs and things happening on the joint bones themselves because it's wearing out so bad. And then it starts to hurt. And then everybody runs to the doctor. Oh my gosh, this is hurting. Usually after they've spent at least a few years taking pills, masking it, which what do you think that's doing to this? Is that stopping this? Even if it's an anti-inflammatory, it's still not stopping this. In fact, the anti-inflammatory slows healing. So here it's doing that. So now they run to the doctor. Oh my gosh. And then they, oh my God, you got bone on bone. Like that just happened a week ago. When really that's been in the works for typically decades. And now, what are your options? Yeah, replacements are often the only thing. Now sometimes you can regrow some of this cartilage. But here's the thing. I had a guy come in and he's in his 80s and they wanted to do both knees, replace him. He was a carpet layer his whole life. And so he's crawling around on his hands and knees, which makes sense that his legs would be tight and compressing his knees. So he's like, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, well, why don't we just do therapy first? So we do some cool things. You know, our office, people are always like, are you sure you're a chiropractor? Because this doesn't look like it. Because we have combined chiropractic, exercise physiology, massage therapy, physical therapeutics. We like pull all this stuff together because everything has a way to help this stuff, which I'll show you in a minute. But what happens is as that's all wearing and tearing and ripping apart, that's what happened in his knees. So I said, well, let's just see, because I know there's not a lot of pain receptors in here. The loads of pain receptors are actually in the soft tissue, the muscles, in the leg that compressed and caused all of this mess to begin with. Let's see if we can get that working better and just see what it does. I go, give me 6 months. Let's just see. Because it's muscle. You can't go to the gym and be like fit in a visit. I've been trying, it don't work, I can tell you. So we're working with him. And after about 3 months, he's like, I'm completely pain-free. He goes, you must have cured my arthritis. His name is John. I go, John, we didn't cure your arthritis. In fact, it's going to look the same. But what we did is we restored the muscle function, which decompressed the joint, slowed the compressive force, and then we got those muscles working better so that now they're not sending pain signals all the time because they're so stiff and tight, and every time you move, you're pulling it. Now he's doing all kinds of stuff. I just saw him the other day because now we're watching his stuff, keeping an eye on it so that he can stay active and mobile. And he is very active and mobile for his age. He was just in Florida for like 2 months. I'm like, you came back too early. What are you doing here, man? He laughed. He's like, yeah, I know. We got stuff to do though. But that's the idea, is by decompressing the joint, whatever the joint is, by getting the muscles around it to loosen so they open up, then you don't have that compressive force happening. That's how arthritis is actually occurring. It's not age. So if I took a person and we went back to when they were young and we watched them, and every time this muscle started to compress down, we were doing things to open it up. And then you as a patient became aware that you needed to look at some of these mobilities and that you could do some of these tests on your own. So you were paying attention to it too. And when you were doing life, you were doing these stretches that we help you to know which ones to do so that you actually can then walk through. And as you're going through life, you're walking through this life, as you get to that age, what do you think your odds are of having all that compressive forces wearing everything away? Much less. And that's what it's all about. I know everybody always gets mad and they're like, I wish I would have known this 50 years ago. Yeah, me too. This is all stuff that we've learned. This is all new stuff. Like, that's why you haven't heard any of this. While if you Google causes of arthritis, you will see this model that I just laid out for you. That's in there. And it's a common sense model, which is why I love it, because you don't have to be a doctor. You just got to have common sense. And you know that if something's in here and you're squeezing it down, it's going to wear out. And if you take the pressure off, then it doesn't. Just how it works. Any mechanic will know that. If I drive around with 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake, will my brakes wear out faster? Gee, I don't know. They all tell you, of course it will. Don't do that. My dad used to yell at my mom all the time for that. It's like, don't drive with both feet. You're burning out the brakes. I don't know if she listened, but he tried. So this is really important that you guys grasp this concept with the degeneration, because anybody benefits from keeping their joints working better as they're going through this thing called life. Everyone benefits because that's directly your mobility. It's your biggest mobility problem that people have, is they lose their mobility physically. Everybody's scared about heart disease and cancer and all these things. And yeah, I mean, that's real to be scared about that stuff. But really the big thing is your mobility. Because even if you get something, as long as you got good mobility, you're doing what you love right up till the end. And that's really what it's about. It's just nobody's talking about this stuff. And especially in the chiropractic realm, that's why I was down teaching in Pittsburgh, because as we talk about this, people just think it's about pain. And it's back pain or whatever, and it's really not, it's mobility. But what we do is very different. Very few places are combining everything together so that you can grasp all the big components of how you can get good function. People think this is an old model that I just was teaching chiropractors on Saturday and Friday. Your back, the vertebrae, people think that your back pops out of place. And then what do chiropractors do? Pop it back in. This is what people think. And that's not how it works. That's an old model that is not even true. I mean, you can have your back pop out of place, and if you do, it'll sever your spinal cord. You will be in the ER, I promise you, and you won't be able to walk or move. It's called a facet dislocation. So all the people that go to chiropractors, are they really walking around with facet dislocations that they're showing up in? Not a chance, right? What's happening is not that. What is happening are these vertebrae where they come together, just like the joints I was talking about, the muscles around those, especially the small little muscles, they get hurt from things that we do in life. This is the thing, we're all getting hurt from things we do in life. And these things we do, they just build up little traumas here and here and here, and you just kind of keep pushing through and just life. And then eventually the straw on the camel's back comes along and boom, you're hurt. People want to blame the shoe. I bent down to tie my shoe. I bent down to pick up that piece of paper. I wanted that Hershey's Kiss and oh man, I hurt my shoulder. Like these are the stories that we hear all day long. It wasn't that thing. It was your restricted motion didn't allow you to do the movement and then you pulled it and now you're hurt. That's what's happening in the spine too. It's not the back's popping out. It's the muscles in there have gotten hurt from just doing stuff and then left unaddressed. And then even if you do address it, you're still going to die one day, but you're going to have better mobility if somebody's watching it and paying attention to it. So I've been teaching them that's not how it works. It's actually the deep muscle, and that's what we have to work on. So no matter how it was done in the past, it was always done to the deep muscle. We just didn't know that until more recent. Also recently, we've had technology. You can see a picture of it on this banner here. So the number one reason, there's been a few studies that have been done polling the public. Why don't you go to the chiropractor? What do you think the number one reason is? Yes, you got it, 100%. They're scared. They don't want to be twisted and turned because that's freaky. And then you watch all these things on TikTok where people are like, boom, boom, and doing like, oh my gosh, who would ever do that? Like some of that stuff scares me. I wouldn't do any, like, so one of the things that we're finding is when you feel, so if I take 10 chiropractors, they all feel your back. You get 10 different answers. And don't panic, dentistry has the same problem. You poke with a little poker in someone's tooth, 10 dentists, they get 10 different answers on what they feel like a cavity feels like. Because it's subjective and it's people. But it's the best that we've got, right? Well, not anymore. Now we have the technology where we can use these computers. These computers can scan your joints, so your neck and your back, or your extremity joints. And what it does is it measures how tight the muscle is around the joint. So now if I have 10 doctors scan you, we get 10 of the same answers. Cool stuff. Much better than having to guess, right? The other piece of it is that machine will actually stimulate that deep muscle and make it relax. As that muscle is stimulated and relaxed, it then opens up the joint, which does what to the cartilage? Preserves it, takes the pressure off. And who doesn't need that? Everybody does, it's just nobody understands it. Now, what's that muscle going to do? So if I've had a muscle compressing this down for decades, and we stimulate it and does this, what do you think that muscle is going to want to do? It's going to want to pull back to how it was. And this is where people get confused because they thought you just go in and get your back popped in. But then, oh, gee, it's hurting again in a day or two. Oh, went and didn't work. Oh, once you go, you got to go forever. Keeps coming back. Well, if you don't retrain the muscle, of course, just like the fat guy going to the gym, he can't go in there once and come out thin. It is not going to work that way. He doesn't just then say, well, gyms don't work. It's the application that didn't work. So you have to do things frequently to muscle to make a muscle change. And that's the hard part because everybody's busy. Nobody wants to do it. But that's how you get results. Just like if you were to go to a gym, you can't just go in there once a month and be like, oh, I'm in such good shape. That doesn't work that way. But you can go frequently for a while to the gym. You can get in really good shape. And then you can cut back and do very little at the gym and you'll maintain that level. And that's a beautiful thing. So that's what you try to do with people. We try to find where all their joint compressions are because it's wearing your cartilage out. Try to slow that down, get those muscles to work better, retrain them to hold it open. And then when you do something that starts to tighten that up, bam, we're on it, opens it up. Tightens up, boom, we're on it, opens it up. Tightens down, oh, we're on it. And then that way you can get farther downstream to the coffin without having bad mobility. I know everybody hates that. They don't like it when I talk about it. Stop saying that. I don't want to think about when I die. One of the secrets to success that's in Jack Canfield's book, he's got these steps in there. And one of them is begin with the end in mind. Anything you do, begin with the end in mind. So that's what you do. You go to your coffin and you look at it and you go, how am I going to get there and get there the way I want to get there? And what do I got to do? And then you just start reverse engineering and get back. And that's how I've figured this out. That's what we do, is you watch these mobilities, ranges of motion, and you stay on them and you walk with people. And then when something's tightened up, you're on it. And then their cartilage lasts longer. They have fewer injuries and they perform better because they're more flexible and can move and do stuff. And that's key really at any age. This technology that I was just telling you about, this is just one of them. We got a handful of different technologies, but that's in the stadium, the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas for the Raiders, the football team. The guy, I actually went out and did a training for him. He's working on all those professional athletes. And I think they're probably in better shape than most of the people in our town. They're multi-million-dollar athletes, but they know that their sport and what they're doing, they need to keep their joints open, they need to keep flexible, and they have to have range of motion. If they run into the touchdown and their shoulder's a little tight, and they just took Tylenol for it so it don't hurt, but it still don't move, and they dive in for a touchdown and they're a little tight, that could mean they just missed it. If they have full range of motion of their shoulder, because we've been watching it and working on it, oh, they just fingertip catched it, they just won the Super Bowl, all of a sudden everybody got $5 million on their team and a ring, and everyone's happy, because sports is a game of inches. So even when you're looking at athletics, it's a game of inches. When I high jumped at Michigan State, the difference between a full ride scholarship and a walk-on, 4 inches. Full ride scholarship, everything paid for, Big Ten school, you got nothing. You're scraping the bottom over 4 inches. And all sports are that way. When you're swinging to hit a ball, something's a little tight, you're going to miss. When you're swinging a golf club, a tennis racket, a pickleball racket, whatever things you're doing, it's a game of inches. So many guys on the golf course, I'll see them because I play on a league, and I'm probably one of the younger guys. There's a lot of retired guys that are in there, and they swing like this because they can't turn and they can't twist. And when I tell them, you should come in and we should work on that stuff, they go, but it doesn't hurt. And I go, I know you're not coming because you hurt. That's the bad thing to do. You're coming for your mobility and your flexibility so that you can hit the ball more than 100 yards. And one guy's, he's always like, what club should I use? I go, it don't matter. You hit everything 100 yards. Use your driver, your wedge, try your putter. That might go 100 yards too. Like, it don't matter. He's like getting all this time. I wonder, it don't matter, man. You can't even swing the club. He's just swinging like this because there's zero range of motion. And again, he didn't wake up that way. It was just slowly degraded over time and nobody paid attention. And if anything did hurt, he just took pills. And that's the way that everybody's been doing things. And I would propose that there's a better way, which is what I just laid out for you. It's a better way to ensure that you have this one life, right? One life. Some of us are closer to the end than the other, right? And it's like, what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do? We got to do stuff to keep it good, because you want to go out doing something you love and fun and just switch off. Not the nursing home, not the rocking chair. Even though rocking chairs are fun. I had a lady, she's like, I love my rocking chair. I'm like, I'm not saying you can't sit in it. You can sit in it if you want to. The difference is if you want to. If you wanted to get up and go do something, can you? Or are you trapped in the thing? That's different. And that's what it's all about. So I know I chucked a lot. Oh, here's some of those muscles. So sometimes it helps you to see stuff. I know I'm like talking. It's like all this talking. And if you're not, you know, from some of the teachers that I know, they teach me how to teach. Like there's different ways that people learn, from hearing, from vision, from seeing, right? Like different ways we all learn. So sometimes it's easier. These are some of the small muscles. So that's your head up there. This is looking at your back from the back. This is the spine, your shoulder blades here and here. And then these are all your ribs, and that's your neck. So at the back of your neck, you see all those little tiny muscles up there? So these are all these little tiny muscles that I've been talking about the whole time. And then on top of them, there's layer after layer after layer of muscle that comes all the way out. And then you got about this thick of skin. And in all those muscles, and even in your skin, there are those receptors that tell your brain what's going on in your body. There's 5 different kinds just in your skin. So when we take these tools and we stimulate those, you're stimulating those too. And then your brain hears those receptors and makes better motion patterns. And then we get the muscles to be looser, less tension, you're moving better, you're feeling better, you're functioning better. You know your thumb's up when it's up here, you know it's not this and you think it's up, right? You get better control over your mobility issues, and then your balance is better and everything works better. These are some of the secrets. Here's just another look at the computer, which has been updated since then. So the big thing that I want to do is, like, I'm big into changing lives. I just had a lady, she's 86, and she just wrote a testimony. You can go look on Google. She put it on Google. I don't know how to do that myself, but she knows how to do it. She went on Google and she did this testimonial, and it said, I'm so thankful. She goes, you let me out of a prison that I didn't know I was in. It was my own body. I had given up hope, thinking that I should be able to move and do stuff because I'm 86 and I'm just old, and I'd given up. And she goes, now I'm free. I can do gardening. She's doing all these things that she wants to do that she didn't think she could do anymore. And that just like touches my heart. That's what it's all about, is getting her that freedom to do the things she wants to do right up until, you know, one day she's just going to be gone like all of us. But that's the way we want to go out. So if you think this is cool and makes sense, we wanted to make sure you had an option. If you guys at home, you want a book, we'll send you a book, or you can come get one. We'll give you I got a coupon in here for a free massage. So you can come in, you can get a massage if you want one, a 25-minute massage, just as a thank you for being here. And then you can experience a little bit what's going on too. But then if you say, hey, you know what, I want to know about all this other stuff, not a problem. We will give you the opportunity to get an evaluation set up. Normally those are how much? $119. But for being here, we're going to waive that. Not going to cost you nothing. You can see what's going on. I encourage you to do that. And then if you go, hey, you know what, this isn't for me. Oh, well, it didn't cost you nothing. Nothing to lose. But nobody ever says that. They all go, holy cow, I didn't even understand any of this stuff. This makes so much sense. If you want that, just ask Andrea. She can help you. I know she already talked to a couple of you already. But those of you that are at home, if you want that, just put that in your message and we'll make sure that happens for you. So you at least know your options and you need to at least know what's going on. The bottom line is you want to feel good, function well, have that freedom lifestyle and doing the things that you love. You guys have any questions? We got any questions online?
One way works, the other way doesn't.
The shoulder test? Yeah, so just one of the shoulders, there's a dysfunctional pattern in the muscles there, usually the rotator cuff muscles. And so we measure that just to get the baseline, and then you do the therapies on it and try to get that to be better, either hit normal or get as close as you can to normal. And then some people you'll work and it'll only get so far. Like I had a guy the other day, no matter what we do, it's not going to get any farther. But we're going to maintain and keep it there, because the difference is if we don't, it will just continue to tighten up, because that's what people do as we get old, right? So you have to rage against that. We have to rage against the tightness that's coming, right? We have to rage against it if you want to have that full active life, which I want to do. You know, I want to be out doing all the things I love right up till the end. And I know everyone I talk to says the same thing. Nobody says that they just want to sit in a rocking chair and, you know, just degrade away. Nobody wants that. And the other piece of it is sometimes people think, well, why bother? 10% improvement can be a game changer. 20% improvement can be a game changer for people and what they're able to do. So it doesn't always have to be a home run. Sometimes a couple first downs are like, woohoo, you know, that can change things dramatically as well. Do you guys have, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you do, you know, you can always, if you go to our website and you go over to our blog, I have so much information there, or you can go to my YouTube channel. We explain so much of this stuff, and some of it in like nauseating detail. You thought this was bad, just should see the ones I do for the doctors. That gets really deep and heavy. But if you're interested in that, it's there. And I have a lot of people that are interested in that because they have people that like don't understand any. I mean, I can tell you this, anybody you go talk to now, they will not understand any of this. And they're going to think you're crazy. And if you even tell them that backs don't pop out, they're going to think you're crazy because that's what they grew up all their life thinking. And now you tell them something's different and nobody likes that, especially the guys. The guys always get mad because you just made them wrong. I'm like, hey, I get it. Number one, I'm a guy, so I get it. Number two, what I was taught in school was wrong. So I want my money back because they just didn't know at the time. But that's true of any school. You talk to any doctor who's been around for 30 years. I mean, what you learn, I mean, some of the basic science stuff, but some of the treatment things have changed. Drugs have been taken off the market because they weren't safe. And at the time, I mean, Vioxx was like the miracle thing forever. And then they took it off the market because it was killing everybody. So stuff changes. It's okay. It's just for some reason, people have a hard time accepting change. And you just have to have that student mindset. You know, we're all lifetime learners. I'm a lifetime learner. I taught at this seminar over the weekend. But the guy after me, I came home with 10 pages of notes. My whole thing is full. My staff's going to cry because I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go, hey, now we're going to do this, and this. But it's just, there's so much and you can't know everything. It's like what drives you crazy. So we're trying to learn as much as we can and then keep, you know, getting that out to the people so that you guys know what's going on and can make informed choices and then, you know, are just being your best right up to the end.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you work with people that have Ehlers-Danlos, that's a connective tissue disorder where you're extra stretchy?
Yeah, so people like that have sometimes more likelihood of having injuries because it's actually gone too far. And so the cool thing with the receptors is when you use the technology, the risk of making that worse isn't existent because you're stimulating the receptors, not grabbing somebody and forcing movements, right? Like the old school stuff. So yeah, we see that all the time. In fact, people who have diseases like that, bad arthritis, or people who are really stiff. I mean, we have people all the time that go, I went to the guy down the street, they said they wouldn't touch me. But they can come to us because we can use the computer. The computer is just going to stimulate that. It's not grabbing onto you and doing forceful movements. And that's like, for a lot of people, that's very appealing because it lowers that fear factor, but you're still going to get those muscles to relax through what's called a stretch reflex. When that machine stimulates that, there's a reflex that causes that muscle just to let go and relax. So a lot of times with Ehlers-Danlos in particular, it'll be tight because it keeps getting hurt because it's a little bit too mobile. And so getting that to relax can be not only a lot of relief for somebody, but it also is going to take pressure out of here so that you can keep that cartilage longer, which is kind of important. That's a really good question, though. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so there's things you can do to like try to slow the process. So again, in the hands, what's causing it is that muscle tension is just compressed all those little joints all in your fingers over time. And by trying to stretch that muscle in there and get that muscle to relax, you're not going to change the arthritis that somebody has in anywhere. Arthritis will not reverse, but you can slow the cause of it, which is the muscle tension. So that's the key. So somebody who has it, you want to like slow that way down the best that you can. And that's where using that, and not just that machine, some of the other machines that we have, there's some different stretches and things that you do on for example, the vibration plate or the soft tissue treatment that does that. There's things you can do on that will help that. In fact, a lot of the chiropractors, when we were just at the event, when I went back in the room where they had all the machines and they were doing demonstrations, a bunch of them were all working on their hands, their wrists and their elbows, because they still do a lot of things manually and they're tearing their bodies to shreds and they're not going to last because wrestling people around all day, every day is going to wear them out. So it's a way they can work on that stuff and not have the bad effects of it. What about it? Yeah, so there's tons of different therapies, right? So some of the red light, the lasers, the things like that, Those things help build energy in your cells. So there's ways your cells make ATP or energy. And one of the ways is through what's called electron transport system, which is what the red light and the lasers do. That sends energy into that transport system. And so what that does is that can help facilitate healing. So if somebody's cells are trying to heal something, you put the red light therapy on there, that puts energy into those cells so that they can actually heal faster. That's how that works. For injuries, most of the stuff we see is not an injury. I picked up a Hershey's Kiss off the floor. It's like very few people come in with actually a true injury. I mean, they do, but it was 8 months ago, 6 months ago. You know, they did something and they don't come in right away. So it's really not inflamed and irritated anymore. It's all become chronic. So now they're coming in with these chronic issues. But yeah, that's a great thing to do for people that are trying to get their cells energy. In fact, the manufacturers of those, I suggested that they make a coffin or a tanning bed and you just lay in it every day because it will recharge, it pours energy into all your cells. And the guy said, we have one, but it's like $80,000 or something. I'm like, well, yeah, let me know. And you just can put it in the tanning booth and you can go lay in there and get re-energized. Wouldn't that be cool? But they have all kinds of like stuff that's just coming down the pipe technology wise that just nobody even knew about. Yeah, so the exercises are tied to your testing. So if you can't do a certain test. Oh, sorry. So question was, do you have exercises that are tied to like a person's problem or what they do? And the exercises, there's a whole slew of them. And what I found with exercise, you can get, I got tons of them on our website. You can go watch them. But you try to do every one of them, you got to quit your job and you can't do nothing else because there's not enough time in the day to do all your exercises, right? So what works better than just generically blasting things is to find where your specific problems are through your ranges of motion and mobility testing that we're measuring, right? We're measuring all that. So for example, if I can't turn my head all the way, guess what your stretch is? Turn your head every day, right? If you can't do the shoulder test, guess what your stretch is? When you come out of the shower in the morning, you're going to flip your towel over, you're going to grab it, and you're going to pull up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So we have these like global movement type things with our testing that we're then going to use those as your active stretching specifically for whatever your issue is that you have. And then that way, we try to incorporate and work those into your daily life. So for example, the hip test, when you sit and you cross your leg like this, for people whose leg doesn't go down, guess what I tell them to do at work? They're going to sit there like that and they're going to push it down. They're sitting at church. When I'm sitting at church, I cross my leg like that and I stretch that. I'm still paying attention. But now I don't have to stop my life. I have to do my exercises. Everything must stop for me to go do this because nobody does it. But if we can work it into your daily routine, just simple little things, even this one, just did it right now. Oh, that one's tighter. Look at that. Oh, come on. This one's been hurt numerous times. So most of the stuff that I figure out, guess who's getting it figured out on first? Moi, right? And then once I figure it out, then we bring it out, roll it out for everybody else. Those are great questions. Any more? All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate your time. Good questions. Appreciate your attention. Hopefully, did everybody learn at least one thing new? If you want to get checked out, go see Andrea right there. She will help you and we'll get you the opportunity to see what's going on. And then, you know, once you're done with my book, just share it with somebody. Give it to somebody. It'll just open your eyes a little bit to some of these concepts that I've talked about. And I didn't talk about everything that's in the book. And you can read it in 20 minutes. I wrote it for patients who have a 20-minute attention span, maybe. So you're okay. And how do I know? Because I'm one of them too. when I go in anywhere, it's like, just get to the point, would you, like, and I know, so it's